Okay, so as you can see, we are going to continue with this topic that is vocabulary, teaching vocabulary. As you know, the theory is quite long. I don't know if you have seen the PDF documents with this one, the teaching vocabulary, and it's very long, right? We have a lot of information, a lot of theory, techniques that we can use inside our classroom. This case, we're going to continue with the principles, and I'm going to explain each one of them. So if you want to participate or if you have any questions or doubts, you have there the option in case that you want to raise your hand, you can do it, right? Or we have the chat section in case that you would like to share some experience or opinions. Okay, so let's start. So the first principle is that we need to emphasize the direct and indirect teaching. I am not recording the session. No, yes I am. No. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Híjole, no, hombre. Me desperté con todo. Okay. So the first one is the direct teaching, and I'm going to tell you some characteristics. And this one, it refers when we teach the words and the meaning, like giving the definition. This one, for example, we can use it in the pre-teaching vocabulary. It means that before the students encounter the vocabulary words, we are going to give them the words, the definition, right? We're going to give them pictures for the students, for children, in order for them to think about the words, to realize what kind of vocabulary words they are going to work with the lesson, right? So this one is a direct teaching, right? Very straight to the point. We're giving them the words and the meanings. And then we have here the indirect teaching. What is this one? For example, this one is when they can learn strategies so they can figure out the meaning of the words. For example, here we have teaching the prefixes to students and then having them point to pictures. So as you can see, the indirect, it means that students are going to figure out. You are not giving the definition. They are starting working with these thinking skills. Like, what is this one? Is this a fruit? Maybe, yes, it is a fruit. Is this a vegetable? Maybe it does. So they can start thinking beyond, right? Here we're not spoon feeding our students, right? They are going to figure out. For example, this one. In the direct teaching, it's very straight to the point, as I mentioned before. And here, for example, if you are going to apply, for example, a reading a story or a comic book, first we need to think about what words are going to be difficult for our students. So we need to teach them first the difficult words. For example, this one. If you have a story about a farm, maybe you can teach your students what is a barn, a farm, dairy, and fence. Maybe those words are going to be different, are going to be new for them. So it's better to teach them that vocabulary words. So this is a direct teaching. As you can see, the teacher is very explicit, is going to give the word and the definition, maybe showing some pictures. And this one in the indirect teaching, for example, you're going to explain the prefixes, the on, by, and try. Here, maybe the students are going to figure out how are they going to use on in unicycle or bicycle or tricycle, right? They are going to figure out like, tricycle because they have 3 wheels, I don't know, right? By, because they have 2 wheels, bicycle, right? And on, because they have one wheel, right? So they are going to think beyond. The teacher is not explaining them, we use by because it means 2, or we're going to use the try because it means 3. No, the students are going to think, and the teacher is not giving the answers. As you can see here, the children is figuring, right? So this one is very indirect, very implicit, right? So we have these ones. You can choose being very explicit or very implicit. That is the indirect or direct. That depends on the style of the teacher, of course. The second principle we have here, that we need to teach vocabulary words before a new activity. Why is it important? Well, because students need to comprehend the activity. If it's a listening, if it's a song or a story, or if they are going to write something, first you need to teach them what vocabulary words are going to be useful for them in order that they can work with those words, right? Another thing is that teaching vocabulary words makes it more likely to acquire the tired vocabulary words. If you teach them the words before starting an activity, it's going to be easier for the students to understand. And the other part is that they are going to acquire more. Mhm. So maybe you may think like, well, children acquire very fast words. They acquire very fast the sounds. Yes, they do. But our job teaching children is to teach them more words so they can have a variety of vocabulary words. So in case that they keep continuing studying English, they will have a variety, even more, right? This is the opportunity for children to learn words, a lot of them, right? Remember that children are like sponges, and they can acquire the sound, the word, the structure of the word. So we can have that advantage of them. So I don't know if you have noticed, but when we're going to teach a reading or a listening, first we'll start with teaching the vocabulary words, right? If you give a student a story about a monster and you tell the student to read the story, maybe that student will have some problems figuring out what words are difficult for them. Like, teacher, what is this one? And what is the definition of this one? What is this? And what is this? So you can avoid that. You can avoid those misunderstandings by explaining the words that are going to be difficult for them. So when you are giving the story, they will know what words you explained before. Like, I didn't know what word was this, but the teacher explained me before, and we had some activities, the vocabulary words. So now I understand. So I don't have any trouble by reading the story or by listening to a song, for example. So that's why it's very important. Let me check here. I have a um, does my microphone sounds weird? ¿Sí me escucha? ¿Me escucho muy mal o me escucho más o menos?
Es que había como una interferencia y se veía como si fuera un robot, pero ya ahorita que me preguntó ya se escucha bien.
Muy bien, gracias. Si me vuelvo a escuchar así, ahí me le dicen de volada, porque creo que ya tengo varios problemitas con este micrófono, no sé por qué. Pero ahí sí me escucho bien, ¿verdad?
Ah, ya volvió a sonar.
Como robot.
Y como si, ay, no sé cómo decirlo, como una interferencia por así.
Ok. ¿Y aquí me escucho mejor? ¿No?
Ahí ya más o menos.
Ok, ay, espero que no. Muy bien.
Ya está bien.
Ok, no me voy a mover entonces. A lo mejor me estaba moviendo mucho. Ok, very good. If I don't sound, I mean, if I starting sound like a robot, tell me very quick so I can do something with the microphone. Very good. So let's continue. The other principle, the next one is teach how to use context clues appropriately. And I'm going to tell you what are the context clues. So here, for example, we have that students can benefit from learning by how? Well, we can use the context clues so they can guess the meaning from the context. And I'm going to tell you what are those. And here, the context clue do not always help readers to understand the meaning of unfamiliar words. So maybe sometimes students are going to have a struggle when they are encountering new difficult words. Maybe at first they will have problems to understand the word or the meaning. Right? That's why we need to help them. And when you are going to explain the vocabulary words, you need to do some activities so they can understand better. You can, for example, apply a matching activity or a memory game or a bingo. So they can start working with the words, with the new words that you teach. Why? Because if you just explain it like this, like, this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a fence, this is a door, this is a board. If you explain it like this, it's not going to be meaningful for them. So they are going to forget about it. That's why when you teach new words, it means that you are going to do an activity after. So they can work with that. That's why it's very important. And here we have children need to be taught, for example, in reading. Students will not be able to figure out the meaning from context clues. So teacher, what are context clues? Is this one. As you can see, for example, this is an example. Here you have the definition of a new word, and then they have an example about the word. They can work with antonyms and synonyms. These ones are very common in groups of children. Why? Because they can start expanding the vocabulary. So for example, you can choose a new word per day. So for example, the new word for today is table. I don't know. So you put there in your board like the definition of table, and then an example how to use the word table. The antonym, well, no, maybe table, no. It could be a verb in an action verb, for example, run. So you put the definition of run, you put a definition of how to use the word run, and then the antonym of run and the synonym, right? So this is going to help them to have a variety of words. But here in the theory, it says that some children are not going to understand at first. So maybe if we starting doing it as a habit, it's going to be useful for them. So this one, I saw that a friend of mine started doing this. These are the context clues. And it was very helpful for the children because they can start having more vocabulary words. So also the age of the children. In this case, we can apply it for children for 7 to 8 or 9 year old, because they can understand what is a definition, the example, the antonym, and the synonym. So it's more difficult for students from 5 to 6, right? They are very young. But you can apply these ones in your classroom. These are the context clues. The next principle is present multiple exposures to new vocabulary items. So here we have that young learners make educational gains when they are exposed to vocabulary items repeatedly in rich contexts. For example, maybe you teach a new vocabulary word on Monday. So what happens on Thursday? They are going to forget about it. Exactly. Yes, they can forget very fast what you're teaching. So that's why here in this principle, they say like, if you start teaching new vocabulary words on Monday, you need to continue. Remember those words, right? Why? Because the students are going to forget. If you're teaching right now and you have a class on Saturday, you can teach them words, but what happens till next Saturday? Maybe they will forget about it. Maybe they will forget about the words that you taught. So you need to remind them, right? You need to remember again. What words did we see last Saturday? What did we talk about last Saturday? So try to engage them so they can remember what did they see the last class. That's why it's very important to present the information repeatedly. Maybe not all over again because there's a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time and you have your time counted, but maybe just like a summary. So they can wrap up the information that you just taught. And here, this is something important. Remember that a new word should reappear many times and in different situations for the next weeks. Why? Because they can start making this habit to remember the words or the new information that you taught. So here I have an example for you. For example, you are going to teach the parts of a house or the rooms of a house, right? That depends. And on Monday, you can bring in the classroom doll furniture or pictures for each room. And you can have your children guess what rooms the furniture goes in. So for example, the table belongs to the living room, for example, or the bed belongs to the bedroom. So you can start making your children to think about it, to think about the furniture and what furniture belongs to each room, right? So that is on Monday. So maybe on Wednesday, you could play different vocabulary games with picture cards featuring goes in. For example, you can make a memory game again with the same vocabulary that you taught on Monday. You can play a bingo with your students. You can create a matching game. You can play Kahoot, right? Remembering the vocabulary words, right? And maybe on Friday, you might have a puppet show where the puppets are moving into a new house and you can create a story there, right? But again, you're repeating the vocabulary that you saw, right? As you can see here all the week, you're repeating the vocabulary, but in a different way. It doesn't mean that you are going to explain all over again the information, no? But creating activities, and the activities are going to help you and children are going to understand better. And it's meaningful for them also. The next principle, it is called give opportunities for deep processing of vocabulary items. So basically, deep processing means working with the information in a personal level. How is that? For example, it is going to be helped because the students are going to remember the information. Students can start connecting the new words with prior knowledge. That is very important. When you start a lesson, maybe you can start asking if they know something about it by putting a picture, and they can brainstorm by asking your students like, what food do you like, for example? So they can start saying the food that they know, right? So they are connecting information that they knew before with the information that you're going to teach. Sometimes teachers say or think that memorizing words is going to be useful for students. But let me tell you that memorizing information, just like this, just read it and memorize these words. No, it's not going to be helpful. Not for children, because children need activities, children need to move, children need engagement of the theory, right? So memorizing list is not going to be useful for children. And also, we need to consider that at this age, children acquire new words. So this is the best opportunity for you as a teacher to give them real information and meaningful information. It means that if you are going to give them a word, it's because they need to work with that word so they can start remembering after. Using words in contexts which are meaningful, right? Using context, for example, today we're going to Planetario Alpha. Maybe I don't have permission to go there, but I'm going to bring Planetario Alpha inside my classroom, right? If we're talking about food, maybe we can't go to a restaurant, but I'm going to bring the restaurant here inside the classroom. I'm going to bring HEB because we're going to talk about different kinds of food that you can encounter in a supermarket, or I'm going to bring you the farm, right? So they can realize that they can learn beyond, right? They don't have to go to another place to learn English because inside the classroom, you're going to bring everything here. And here, for example, we have involves grouping words according to different characteristics. You know that one word has a lot of meanings, has a lot of definitions. So we need to be very aware of what words you're going to teach and what definition you're giving to the student. Remember grouping the words. For example, this is the vocabulary of food. This is the vocabulary about clothing. This is the vocabulary about weather. Teach them about groups of words, right? Not giving them just words like that, like, I'm going to, how can I say? I'm going to teach you vocabulary about one word about weather, one word about clothing, one word about adjectives, and this is information. let's learn about it. No, give them the groups. Like today we're going to talk about weather, okay? So you can help them to remember or learn about those words, those grouping words. And also the most important, here give them the opportunity to relate the new word with their own lives. Here, Erika, you say the definition that we give depends of the topic of the class. Exactly, Erika. So it depends a lot. If it's a reading about weather, sometimes in the reading, maybe you may have words that are not related to weather. So in that case, you can teach them. Remember that if you have a reading, what is the first thing that you are going to do? You are going to look at the reading, and you are going to circle, as a teacher, you are going to circle the words that you may think, you know what, these words are going to be difficult for my students. So I need to teach them these words first before my students read this text. Because if I give them the reading just like that, they are going to ask you a lot of times about the same word. So that's why it is very easier for the teacher to teach them those words before, because you don't waste a lot of time to explain each one of your students. So matas dos pájaros de un tiro. And it's better if you are teaching a reading or a song, because in the listening, if they don't understand what word did they hear, they are going to have a lot of problem. That's why in the listening, it's also very important to teach them what words are going to be difficult to hear. Like maybe these ones are going to be difficult, so I'm going to teach them the pronunciation first. So after they listen to a song, they are not going to have any problem to identify the sound of the word. That's why it's very important. And actually, yes, it depends of the topic that you are going to give. Okay. Here I have another principle, that is teach students to use dictionaries. Sometimes we are afraid to give them the dictionary of students. Why? Because we may think that translation is not good. They are going to be relying on the dictionary every time. But it's very important to have one in the classroom, because sometimes us as a teacher, we can forget about words, and it's natural. It happens. If your student asks you about a word in English, maybe you're thinking about something else. You are monitoring your students. You won't have a lot of time to process what the student is asking you. So maybe having a dictionary in your classroom, students are going to be, you know what, maybe the teacher is having, is with another student, so I'm going to stand up and look for the word by myself. So it's okay, right? So you can have one in your classroom. Here, Thornbury says, the use of dictionaries as a tool for EFL and ESL learners' instruction has come back into style. It's very important. It doesn't mean that the dictionary is a weapon against you. No, it's fine. I mean, if we don't have a lot of time thinking, or we don't know about a word, well, you can say, you know what, let me check to the dictionary, or can you help me finding the word that you are mentioning, so we can do it together. Yes, we can do it. I mean, use a dictionary as a tool to help you, and also to help your students, and to teach them that the dictionary is another tool so they can learn more words. So here we have that children under the age of 6 can use a picture dictionary. So I don't know if you have seen a picture dictionary. It's very useful for children. For example, if you taught a lesson about food, maybe at the end of the lesson, you can ask your students, what words were new for you, or what words you didn't know? And maybe one student can say, I didn't know the word pineapple, for example. So you can say, okay, in your picture dictionary, you can put that word that you didn't know in your notebook, okay? So they can have a record of new words. I'm going to show you some examples. For example, this one is one. I don't know, but in some classrooms, they have this picture dictionary pasted on the walls. And it's very useful for students because it is a visual guide. So in case that they forget about some words, they can look up to the wall and say, ah, okay, it's this one, right? Maybe flashcards. Those are another types of picture dictionary. And also it increases the amount of words for students. Even though we may think that children are very distracted, no, but they can look, maybe they can get distracted about lesson, but they get distracted by looking at the walls and they can learn, right? They can learn by just looking at it. Maybe some students are visual, so they can remember, like, I remember that on the wall was the word apple or the word star, right? So this is a visual guide for students. So another thing is that, for example, here in the theory, it says, if children are learning about grapefruit, they can be guided to a picture dictionary page, topically to arrange to include the fruit. The students will discover the grapefruit as being fruit. For example, in some books, we have activities like this, like, what is this? And students need to write down the correct answer. Sometimes the students are not going to connect that that the grape is a fruit. But after they do this activity and after you explain that the grape is part of a fruit, they can connect, right? So that's why the matching activities are very important for students, and also the memory games. Every activity that you apply in your classroom is going to be useful, right? Because they can connect the grape with the group word that is a fruit. And also, it is important to teach children how to use different dictionaries, right? Sometimes in the dictionaries, we can find that there are a lot of meanings. As you can see in the dictionaries, they have the main definition, and then you have a second definition that is related, but in another context, and then we have another one and another one. So also, if you are going to have a dictionary in your classroom, let's remember the children that the first definition is the main one, is the most important, because maybe they can have a lot of struggle, like, teacher, but here it says a different definition and the other definition says another different type of definition. So just to make sure that your students consider that the first definition is the one that they are looking for, right? And also, you know that now we have the technology. So maybe some children, they are going to not use the dictionary, but they are going to use their cell phones. And you know that in the internet, we can have a lot of pages of dictionary. So consider that you are giving them the one that you want them to look for. For example, we have Macmillan, that is a good dictionary. We have Oxford Dictionary, right? So try to give them, okay, you are going to use your cell phone to look for a dictionary in the website? Okay, use Oxford Dictionary or use Macmillan, right? So they can know that they can use those ones and not Yahoo Respuestas or Wikipedia or Google definition, right? So let's make aware of that. And these ones, for example, are the the picture dictionary. Here they can write the word and then they can draw the word. Drawing is very important in this age because students can connect, right? Most of the students are very tactile and very visual. So it is going to be helpful for them. And here, for example, we have another one. As you can see, this is more about young learners, more older. For example, here we have the word from text and the meaning, right? The synonym, as you can see. Charming, cute, weep, cry. So they can start, instead of drawing, they can put the synonym, right? To clarify the word. And let me see here, because I didn't put the correct order of animations. Sorry with this one. Here we have, yes, the vocabulary notebooks that are very important for students because they can have the control. This is called a journal. And the journal is very helpful for students, for children, or for learners that are older, because they can put their new words that they didn't know or words that they encountered during the lesson. So you can, for example, tell your children for homework, like, for homework, please add 4 new words that you didn't know from today's lesson. You can draw the word and put and write the word next to it, or you can write the word and write the definition, so they can have a journal of new words. This is going to be helpful because they will remember and they will have a journal, like a record, and it's an evidence for you because you can see what children are going to learn more or which children is having problems to remember words, right? So I don't know, Erika, you are teaching children right now within Juve?
And with adults, miss.
Adults, you can use
Yes.
that one also, like a journal.
Mhm.
You can, it works with children, adults, or teenagers, and having them a record of new words is going to be useful. And well, I'm teaching my mom and this during this quarantine, and my mom is having, well, she actually made it by herself. Like she started having a notebook, and there she was writing the new words. And I was like, "What are you doing, mom?" And she was like, "I'm putting the new words that I didn't know." So when I was reading this theory, I said, "Wow, they do it by their own." So having a journal is going to be useful for them. Just to consider that. And well, some books in English, they have these ones, and it's very useful. I would like to have one. So they have here the word, what it means, what sentence they can apply with the new word, meaning, the picture. Maybe if we don't have one, maybe we can create one of us. Right? I was considering creating one because it is very helpful for children because they can write the word, they can see the definition, they can see meaning, and also can learn. And also, if they learn the word enthusiasm, the synonyms are going to be useful for them because they can have more vocabulary. Enthusiasm is the same as excitement. Or they have more words of expression. I'm considering doing that. If I do it, I'm going to tell you. And I don't know if you have any questions here till now. I don't know if you have any or experiences.